In 2019, a 57-year-old woman arrived at a hospital in Vancouver in cardiac arrest. Her heart had stopped beating. Monitors showed zero measurable brain activity. By every clinical definition we have, she was dead. She stayed that way for 4 minutes. When doctors managed to resuscitate her, she didn't report a blank void. Instead, she described seeing specific details about the room and the medical staff around her during those 4 minutes her heart wasn't beating. Details that were later verified as accurate. The neurologist on her case spent the next 3 years trying to find a logical explanation for how she could have perceived anything while her brain was clinically silent. He interviewed the staff and reviewed every second of the medical data. He found no evidence of a mistake and eventually published the case as a medical anomaly. Traditional science assumes clinical death is a quiet biological fade to black, a steady loss of power until there is nothing left. But understanding how the Vancouver woman saw anything at all requires us to trace the specific biological countdown that occurs inside the brain during its final 7 minutes. The countdown begins the moment your heart stops. Your blood pressure drops instantly to 0. The 5 liters of blood that were rushing through your body a second ago are now completely still. No flow, no delivery. However, the brain is built to survive the first few seconds of a total system failure. It accounts for about 20% of your body's total oxygen consumption, and it continues to run on the residual oxygen trapped in the static blood for roughly 10 seconds. Because your neurons are still firing on these reserves, your conscious thoughts continue. You are still processing your last thought, still hearing the ambient noise of the room, completely unaware that your heart has already stopped. At the 10-second mark, the oxygen supply is exhausted. The cerebral cortex shuts down, and all outward signs of consciousness vanish. Your eyes stop processing light, your ears stop registering sound, and from the outside, you appear to be gone. In 2023, neuroscientist Jimmo Borjigan at the University of Michigan monitored the brainwaves of 4 comatose patients as they were taken off life support. Her team expected to see brain activity slowly wind down into a flat line. The data showed the opposite. In 2 patients, the brain erupted with a massive spike of gamma waves associated with conscious perception. This organized activity concentrated in the temporal parietal junction, a region linked to out-of-body experiences and visual processing. The absence of oxygen appears to act as a catalyst, forcing the dying brain into its most active electrical state. By the 30-second mark, the body begins to collapse at a cellular level. All 37 trillion cells switch to anaerobic respiration, producing a flood of lactic acid. The muscles that control the eyes go slack, causing the pupil to dilate and fix in place. While the body degrades, the subjective mind may be waking up. Dr. Sam Parnia at New York University tracked the experiences of hundreds of cardiac arrest survivors in a study called AWARE, looking for evidence of consciousness during clinical death. The findings were consistent across 25 hospitals. 40% of survivors reported conscious perception, 20% described structured, clear memories, and 3% reported full visual and auditory awareness while they had no heartbeat. These survivors frequently reported that they were not alone. They described the presence of a specific, recognized deceased relative who appeared with a clear purpose, often to guide them or tell them it wasn't their time yet. This creates a biological paradox. The body is suffering catastrophic cellular failure and an acid buildup that should disable all function, yet the brain is producing an experience of profound clarity and social recognition. This clarity often manifests as a life review. While popular culture depicts this as a highlight reel of major achievements, survivors describe it as a return to the mundane. They see a specific Tuesday afternoon, or the way sunlight hit a kitchen table in a house they haven't lived in for decades. In one case, a man resuscitated after cardiac arrest accurately described a white cat on a staircase in a building he hadn't seen since he was 14 months old. He had no conscious memory of the apartment, yet his description was so precise his mother recognized it instantly. Curious. This suggests that the brain might store every single visual and auditory experience we've ever had, even those we didn't have the language to file away at the time. The final gamma wave surge appears to activate these long-dormant neural pathways, projecting decades of forgotten data in a single organized playback. This internal experience eventually reaches a physical limit at the 7-minute mark. This is when autolysis begins, a process where the body's own enzymes start to break down and dissolve the membranes of your cells. This 7-minute window is the boundary line between clinical death, which can be reversed, and biological death, which is permanent. If external intervention, like CPR or a defibrillator, doesn't restart the heart within this timeframe, the structural decay of the brain becomes too severe for recovery. Those who are brought back from this threshold often return with a shifted perspective. They don't express a desire for more wealth or status. They return with a deep appreciation for the half-noticed moments, the ordinary details of a typical afternoon. As you move through your day-to-day, your brain is recording every unremarkable second. It is filing away the lighting, the faces you pass, and the conversations you barely hear, building the hyper-real archive that it will play back in your own final 7 minutes.